wait, we got to be innovating every day. Whether it's the AI world or just startup world in general, I don't think we can ever stop experimenting and trying new things. And like my first question to myself and the team was, what did we build in the last 3 months? And if it's just small features and we didn't do anything big, that's a miss. That's a miss for our customers, that's a miss for us.
Welcome to Founder Fridays. This is where we sit down with builders who've been in the trenches to talk shop, product design, the real lessons nobody puts on a slide deck. My name is Bryan. I lead the product growth team here at Notion. And today I'm joined by Neha Mittal, a former growth leader at Pinterest and Twitter, and now co-founder and CEO of Just Words. I'm so excited for this conversation. Neha, thank you so much for joining us. Before we dive in, can you level set a little bit? Can you tell us what is Just Words? What does it do? Who are you building for?
Yeah, totally. So JustWords is an AI platform for lifecycle teams, and Notion's one of our favorite customers. But really, what we do is we hyper personalize messaging on all your retention channels, from emails to push notifications. And so instead of the old school world where you're looking at manual ways to do your lifecycle stuff, you can do that now in a more optimized way using AI.
That sounds good. As a growth person myself, all of those things sound like music to my ears. Really excited that you're working on that. Um, I would love to rewind all the way back to those earlier chapters at Twitter and Pinterest, so we can get a glimpse into your life there. You've had such an impressive journey in growth. Can you share what first drew you into the growth as a discipline?
Yeah, there's both a personal aspect to it and, of course, just like the business aspect as well. So, just a backstory on before doing growth at Twitter, I first joined Twitter to start their first data product team. And so, this is at the time when GDPR was becoming a thing, and Twitter and every other social media company was asking the question, how are we using people's data? What can we do to understand data better? So it started there, and we grew that team from like 5 people to 100 plus people. But data was my thing, and I was getting very, very detail oriented on data. And as I did that, the team got stable, and the next thing was to understand, where do I apply this? And the growth team, had done a lot of stuff with data, but the next thing they wanted to do is to basically think growth from a more data oriented perspective. So that's sort of what drove me to start having conversations with that team and join growth. But on the personal front as well, I knew that I like adrenaline. I like to see number go up, which is something that I do now day to day, every day. And so, just those things also aligned with who I am as a person. Very impatient. My my startup team would tell you that. So, just that genre lines up with who I am as well.
That's awesome. I am also a sucker for numbers going up. So, like Twitter and Pinterest, two massive, very impactful products that have literally shaped how the world uses the internet. Is there maybe like a particular growth challenge that stood out to you that you can share with our audience?
Yeah, and I might be biased here because that's what made us start this company. Uh, but one of the things that we constantly struggled with is how slow our processes were when we had to figure out what is the next best intervention to make. So it could be as simple as, let's change a copy on a push notification, or it could be very big in terms of, let's create a recommendation model that helps us understand our users better, right? All of it was based on vibes or the loudest voice in the room. It's like, oh, an engineer raises their hand and says, let's do it. And like everybody's trying to do that because nobody knows what to make out of a fig jam in terms of ideas. And so what that came down to is we lack a systematic approach in how do we understand what to prioritize and keep having more shots on goal and understanding how to use data to then affect our growth strategy. Um, just to get more specific here, we would look at copy and content as a growth lever. But I remember one of the big things for both Twitter and Pinterest was localization, which probably is a problem that happens in larger companies when you're growing in international markets. But it was such a big beast, where it was a beast and underdog at the same time, where translations was painful in terms of just taking the content, putting it in the right languages, getting it reviewed by different translators, putting it back in your code. but also an underdog because, again, we were serving the US market, and are we getting enough revenue and business numbers from other markets, right? So it was an interesting pain point that we saw in both, I saw personally in both the growth teams, and how do we create impact across markets, but also create a systematic and like more efficient way of doing that.
That's great. Uh, is there maybe like a growth principle from those years that you learned there that you think like still applies to you today as a founder?
Uh, So many. um, I think one that I think of, again, maybe I'm biased, but one that is true not only in our product but in reality is experimentation. Most growth teams, I'm sure you do that too, are very fond of let's test and figure it out. It it's so critical in consumer companies when you're looking at millions of users because you don't have a sense for what each individual wants, unlike a B2B company where you can talk to your users, see what they're looking for. But what's interesting is that same growth principle applies in early stage companies where we have very little data to go by and a lot of it is intuition. And so when you have to balance the two, you're basically saying, let's try out this strategy, see if it works. If it doesn't, let's quickly pivot out and try something else. So fundamentally, that principle is actually one of our core values as well, where we want to experiment, fail fast, learn faster, and move faster. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's such a cool way of thinking about the company and experimentation. Can you maybe like talk through what motivated you to found Just Words? Like like what made you like take the leap to create the company?
So when I was doing growth at Twitter, we'd built out this whole machine learning platform that was driving over 20% of our DAUs. It was a very big team by now. We're very proud of what we're doing, and we would joke about, hey, we should build a company around this at some point. It was only an internal joke at the time. Um, and then the story with Twitter, where Twitter gets acquired by Elon. A lot of movement in there. So, some spark started to happen then with the growth team, where we're thinking, okay, maybe this is a good time for us to take the plunge and build a company around it. Um, I didn't start the company then. I ended up actually going to Pinterest right after. Pinterest had the exact same patterns and problems that Twitter did. So everything from how do we scale experimentation, how do we understand localization, how do we create this machine that just does work on its own while we focus on strategy. Um, that was one part of it. And the second thing that was like glaring at us was AI. It's like, okay, the world's about to change. This is 2023, right? The world's about to change. Everybody's talking AI. Nobody quite knows if this is crypto or bigger. So, I was itching that this is the time to go back and do something big. And this is one of those waves that probably repeats every decade or so. So yeah, around December of 2023 is when I made a decision that, I want to quit and go back to building a company.
What do you think is like the hardest adjustment in going from like one frame of mind to the other and like, being in that startup world? Like what is the adjustment going from these like large companies to a founder?
Yeah, so many on both professional and personal fronts. I guess I'll share both. Um, I think on the professional front, uh, I knew this theoretically, but I saw it firsthand in the first few months, which is you have to become a generalist very, very quickly. And by generalist, I mean you have to pick up everything from HR, paying your employees, filing taxes, to doing product, to learning sales, which you have zero experience on as a product and engineer, and 15 other things that like fall on your plate. So every day we do scrums and I look at my to-do list, and it's a mixed match of everything from compliance to product to the new vision to fundraising. So that skill, that context switching, and being able to both grasp all of that context and run with it, that's probably the biggest adjustment. On the personal front, again, knew this going in, there is not that much of a life you've got outside of work as we do the startup stuff. Um, but the adjustment was not that, oh, you know, we're going to spend more hours working. The adjustment was quite the opposite, where very quickly had to figure out how am I not burning out and what am I doing for myself, and also telling the team to do things to make sure that they're not burning out. So very specific things on like good sleep, mental health, working out. So that was interesting, where it was more introspection on how do I work, what do I care for, how do I make myself mentally strong, because again, this is not a sprint, it's a marathon. Want to make sure that the company lasts for a long time. Yeah.
Are there maybe like other things that you learned like you know in a larger company environment that translate, or do you find like startup land is just like very different and a different mindset and skills that you have to learn?
Most of it is different. Interestingly, one thing that I thought was very transferable, and I didn't think going in that it would be, is the people stuff. And I was just like texting my mentor, my manager, who's my mentor as well from Twitter. I was like, I do. He's a great people person. I loved working with him, and I would tell him, I don't think you understand how much people need this expertise from you, because every second day I'm talking to him about how do I deal with this kind of customer? How do I deal with this company that has 15 stakeholders? How do I motivate my team? There's like the people stuff just never goes away. And that's something I didn't think of, because I thought we'll be a lean team, we'll be working hard, we'll be heads down, just doing work. And the reality of it is no, there's a big people aspect that remains. Uh,
You know, I would love to, you know, also zoom in on, you know, like the growth area and discipline and like and how that looks at like a smaller scale as well. You know, a lot of the founder audience today is like, you know, thinking about how growth applies when you're a really small company. Um, as you kind of work through your startup or look at like other startups in the area, is there maybe like a common mistake that you've seen in like how they approach growth, or, you know, are there like pitfalls or things that folks should be wary of?
yeah, and I'm sure we're still making some of them, so take it with a grain of salt. But the first, I'll share a few experiences. So the first thing that we saw ourselves doing was we were running with fear when we were just starting. So this is early YC days where we're saying, "Oh, we want to build this thing, but of course, it's a paper idea. We're going to go and sell it to other startups. They're easy to approach. We'll build something with them." Uh, Absolutely wrong, because we were building a personalization product that needs data to begin with, right? And so the first switch was, wait, who is your customer? And if you think they're a customer who you're solving a problem for, don't why wouldn't you go after them? And like our first sort of imposter syndrome was like, how can we? We're just a startup. And something YC did well is to like reorient us. And they were like, have you talked to those people? Have they said no to you? And just raising our hands and saying, hey, we're building this thing. We think this is a problem. Do you want to work with us? You realize that no matter how big or small the company, if the problem is real, they'll work with you. And so we very quickly switched to enterprise first right away, which most companies would say, like, oh, it's, start with smaller, then go into enterprises. Like that, that was not intuitive going forward, but very quickly we realized that, find your customer, big or small, doesn't matter, and then go after them. Um, the second thing a lot of people talk about, okay, so a lot of people say, don't build something, first find a problem, then go build it. I'd heard that as a theory, and I found it hard to believe, because I'm like, what do you mean? How do I sell some, like, how do I make somebody pay for something that does not exist, right? And over, we, like with our first few customers, we started with spreadsheets. We didn't have an AI solution that just like churns out content and copy and whatnot. We started with spreadsheets. We ran experiments in like disparate systems. We showed results, and then we moved from there. And so that's a good proof point too, where you wanna keep going to the customer first. You want to understand what problem you're solving with them, and ideally build with them. And that's something we figured out a little bit later in the company, when we have a few customers now, where we're like, we actually fire customers who are not innovators or builders, because we want people to be telling us how to improve our product. And this is why we love working with Notion as well, because we get so much feedback and ideas all the time on how to improve our product and what they want to see. And that's sort of the best way to like carve out what this product should look like as well. Um, but anyway, those are the two that come to mind. I'm sure there's tons of other mistakes we made on the way.
It's really interesting that you talk about experimentation. I feel like that's also maybe like a theme early on is, when should you experiment versus like be more opinionated about like customer needs or build systems, or like how do you ride that trade-off? How do you look at experimentation like when companies are small?
Reminds me of two different sort of breakthroughs or stories or other lows in the company. So I'd love to talk through both of them. Um, The first one was, we're a year in, we've got a few customers going, and we're complacent. We're happy. We've got a repeatable cycle. And it was literally the calm before the storm because right after we hear news on like, oh, this customer doesn't want to continue, or this customer has this pain, or by the way, AI is moving in this direction, but just words hasn't caught up. It's still words, things like that. And it's like, wait, what happened? And then in like 2 days, I was like, wait, we got to be innovating every day. Whether it's the AI world or just startup world in general, I don't think we can ever stop experimenting and trying new things. And like my first question to myself and the team was, what did we build in the last 3 months? And if it's just small features and we didn't do anything big, that's a miss. That's a miss for our customers. That's a miss for us. At the same time, what's interesting and really hard is, I think a mistake that I made early on, and I wish I could, if I had to repeat this, I would do it differently, was um, giving your product enough opinions and love as you have your first few customers. So, you've got your first few customers. The moment you've got the next few, they're going to take you in so many different directions because every customer will have a different nuanced need that they want. And the way we worked is like, hey, a customer wants this, we're going to build this feature. And then they want this other feature, we're going to build those features. Before we knew it, we had 100 features in our product and nobody knew how to use our product. And it became really hard for us to know how to now backtrack and reset expectations on the product. Um, if you sort of fast forward that 10 years, if you keep building in that with that sentiment, right, it's almost impossible for you to now reshape and restructure the product because you've set customer expectations a certain way. And that's both a good and bad thing for us because companies who are 10, 15 years down the line, they don't have the advantage of using AI the way we're using it. But at the same time, even with 6 months, I'm like, we got to be very, very careful and opinionated in terms of every new thing we're trying and experimenting and putting back into a product. Um, so those are like very interesting and kind of opposite stories in terms of, do you experiment or do you pause and think? I don't know if there's a right answer, except you got to be very you got to have a vision, but you got to be very opinionated about what you would like your product to be. Uh,
I'm curious, do you see AI creating like different opportunities for how people look at growth and retention and that practice as well over time? Yeah, I'm curious if you see any trends there.
oh, absolutely. Like that's also the core of what we work in. So, um, lot of interesting opportunities, and I'll again share some very like tactical insights as well from our customers. Um, as of last year, we were still in the world of looking at, hey, can I improve growth by improving opens on my push? Like, can we get more users to open my email or push notifications, right? Um, that's now so easy that almost everybody's looking at, can my marketing program or growth and retention program actually move the downstream metrics? And I would like to optimize every single email to be actually moving numbers on my company. Um, and all of that is happening because AI can, and all the keeping agents and MCP buzzwords aside, but really what it's doing behind the scenes is it's letting you do things that you would take 10 people to do. Like we are able to run, for example, hundreds of experimentations in a month, which was never possible 2 years ago. So all that automation actually setting the bar really high, which is great. Like it's anything that feels like work but didn't have outcomes, and it was okay because nobody knew how to track those outcomes. I think those things are dying, and the quality is going up. So I'm excited for that. Well, like, and definitely growth and retention is going to see a whole different wave in AI.
That's great. I'm also excited for that world. Um, do you do you think there are any like pitfalls that founders should avoid when bringing AI into their growth strategy?
Uh, my pet peeve, the biggest one that I have is I I think it's absolutely flawed to first look at AI and say it's going to solve for growth. Uh, the foundations don't change in that you have to nail the problem, a very, very specific problem, and then see if AI can accentuate, like, make it better, solve it, absolutely eliminate it, whatnot. Uh, but as I talk to so many founders, it's always like GPT-5 came out and it can do so much, and hence it'll solve something. It's like, no, let's go back to what is the outcome and what is the use case it's solving, and then see if we can apply this. I think that foundational aspect of no, find a problem people want you to solve remains. Uh, that's one pitfall I've seen, even when sometimes you're pitching to companies where we're like AI everything, and the number one question that like even our users tell me is like, they pitch this, we don't know what it's solving for us. I don't know what to do with MCPs if I cannot solve my marketing problems, you know? So I think that'd be my number one thing. Like if you can pitch your AI product without bringing the word AI into it, that's great.
That's great. Okay, let's pop the hood for a minute and see what powers Just Words day to day. Is there a tool that you call out that's maybe like 10x you or your team's output this past year?
I have to say the biggest ones are the coding tools. So we pretty aggressively tried a bunch of tools, everything from Claude Code to Cursor to Devin. And I remember there was a time when we were trying to hire designers, junior engineers, and we started to use these tools. And like in a month, we were like, you know what? We'll pay $1,000 a month, and we don't we can cut down hiring. So those are the biggest ones. Um, of course, Notion is another big one in our stack. And Notion started to play a big role as we started to go from, again, 2 to 3 customers to like 10 plus customers, where we're like, we need organization, we need discipline, we need run books, we need project plans. And so just being able to quickly navigate, and I love Notion databases, for example. So yeah, all of those features are really, really handy for us.
It warms my heart. Is there maybe like a Notion workflow or a template other founders could steal tomorrow? Is there like maybe like a thing that you gravitate towards to help others look at Notion and adapt it for them as well?
Yeah, this might be more for B2B startups specifically, but we use Notion pretty actively for our customer hubs. So every company that we work with, we will give them a customer hub where we'll have everything from onboarding to their weekly notes, bugs and features they can report on, intake form where we'll ask them questions on what is it that you want to optimize, things like that. And that created a really good structure for us. Now we can just like create instances of that for every new customer.
We're going to start our very exciting lightning round. Hopefully, give some
Okay.
good takeaways for our listeners. Okay, so first question: if you had to start Just Words over again today, what's one thing you would do differently?
Oh God, I'd hire a chief of staff after having my first customer.
I love it. Uh, what's one lesson that's helped you build better?
I think structuring my thoughts before building something, just writing them down, adding structure to it.
Very cool. And what's one piece of advice you give to a founder just starting out?
Talk to your users. Talk to your users a lot. Build on spreadsheets before building anything real.
I love it. Well, Neha, it was so great chatting with you today. I feel like I learned so much about you, about the work you've done, about growth, about startups. It was so much fun. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Yeah, thank you, Brian. Thanks for having me.